Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are gonna be telling you a scary story that actually happened in ancient Egypt. It's one of the most famous ones, but it is one of the scariest. So let's get right into it. In the year 332 BC, Alexander the Great was on his campaign to conquer the entire known world. He had just defeated the Persians and was making his way east when he heard about an even greater prize. To the east, across the sea, lay India, a land of untold riches. But there was a problem. The sea between him and India was patrolled by the Royal Navy of Macedon. Their ships were fast, and their crews deadly. How could Alexander possibly hope to win a battle against such powerful foes? Turns out he didn't have to. Thanks to one very special artifact, Alexander and his men would sail through the Red Sea like they were on dry land. What artifact could possibly do that? A magic carpet. Alexander, the great conqueror of the known world, was about to learn the hard way why messing with Egyptian tombs is never a good idea. Our story begins in the city of Siwa. Situated in the middle of the Egyptian desert, Siwa was once the capital of a small independent kingdom. But in 343 BC, it was conquered by Persia and became part of their vast empire. However, the Persian occupation was short-lived as just 2 decades later, Siwa came under the control of Egypt. But although the people of Siwa were now subjects of Egypt, they still looked to their old Persian masters for help when trouble came calling. When Alexander the Great arrived in Siwa in 332 BC, he demanded that the city's governor hand over two brothers named Cleitos and Ptolemy, who had led a rebellion against the Egyptians, but the governor refused, hiding the brothers in the temple of Zeus Ammon. Now, Zeus Ammon was no ordinary temple. According to legend, it was here that the mortal king, Ammon, took the form of a ram to save the life of the Hebrew infant Moses, after Moses had murdered an Egyptian who tried to beat up a Hebrew slave. And so, to honor this event, the temple featured a large statue of a ram headed Zeus. Of course, this was just a myth, but Zeus Ammon was nevertheless one of the most important temples in the ancient world, drawing pilgrims from all over the Mediterranean to pay it a visit. This is why when Alexander arrived demanding to speak to the governor, the priests of Zeus Ammon refused to let him enter. Instead, they offered to show him a much more impressive sight, the legendary treasure chamber of the temple. The priests led Alexander down a long corridor, adorned with statues of rams and sphinxes, until he finally reached a huge pair of doors. These were intricately carved and covered with scenes from Greek mythology. As the doors opened, Alexander gasped. Inside was a massive chamber filled with piles of gold and silver, jewels, precious stones, and more. At the far end sat a throne made entirely of gold. The sight was so spectacular that Alexander couldn't take his eyes off of it. This is why he didn't notice a small figure standing behind the throne, a hunchback cloaked in shadow. The man stepped forward, bowing before the stunned Alexander, and introduced himself as the high priest of Zeus Ammon. He explained that the treasure was not real gold, but only an illusion meant to test mortals. Would they bow before it and become greedy, or would they walk away and remain pure? Apparently, Alexander had passed the test, and as a reward, the high priest would grant him one wish. All Alexander had to do was name it. Alexander thought for a moment. The priests of Zeus Ammon were said to be incredibly wise and powerful, so naturally, he wanted to know how he might defeat the legendary Persian navy. The high priest smiled knowingly. He motioned to the treasure at their feet and told Alexander that if he mixed the gold with water, it would become a magical elixir that would allow him to control the seas. Alexander did as he was told, and soon discovered that the high priest was correct. The next day, he dipped his hands into the Red Sea and pulled them back in surprise. The water had turned to gold. Soon, the entire sea was a solid sheet of metal, and Alexander's ships sailed right over it like they were walking on the ground. But when Alexander returned to the temple of Zeus Ammon to thank the priests, he found it abandoned. The streets of Siwa were also deserted. No one was anywhere to be seen. Fearing that the people of Siwa had risen up and massacred the priests, Alexander ordered his men to set fire to the city. Just as they were about to do so, however, a group of men ran out of the temple, waving white flags. They begged for mercy, explaining that they were the priests of Zeus Ammon, and that they had fled in terror upon seeing the gold in the sea. But it was too late. Alexander was already angry, and he had no intention of showing mercy. He ordered his men to kill every last priest. Then he returned to the treasure chamber to collect his prize. Now, it seems that Alexander got exactly what he asked for. He had come to Siwa wanting to know how to defeat the Persians, and now, thanks to the power of the gods, he had the upper hand. But what he hadn't counted on was the wrath of those same gods. See, in addition to being the god of wisdom and prophecy, Zeus was also the god of the sky and thunder, and according to legend, his anger was hot and terrible to behold, for as soon as Alexander looted the treasure chamber and fled Siwa, the skies over the city turned black, and the earth trembled. A huge bolt of lightning struck the temple of Zeus Ammon, setting it on fire. As Alexander watched in horror, the fire spread quickly, engulfing the entire temple. Within minutes, nothing but a pile of ashes remained. Then suddenly, a terrible roar shook the ground beneath him. Out of the corner of his eye, Alexander saw something emerging from the flames. It was the golden statue of Zeus, and it was coming right for him. In a panic, he tried to run, but it was too late. The statue loomed over him and spoke in a voice that boomed like thunder. "Alexander, you have stolen my treasure and killed my priests. Now I am come to claim your life." Then Zeus struck him down with his golden staff, and Alexander crumpled to the ground, his body slowly turning to gold. And as the sun rose the next morning, Alexander was nowhere to be seen. In his place stood a statue of gold, forever trapped in the deserts of Siwa. Zeus may have gotten his revenge, but Alexander's greed ensured that his name would live on in infamy. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these.